Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Wednesday's edition, 6 days before Election Day, and we're broadcasting from Southern California and from the great Midwestern city of Chicago. Tom Amenthal, welcome back to the show. Happy to have you as my guest today.
Hey, always good to be here. Although when you told me that you've got an eye patch, I'm a little disappointed that I don't get to see Mark the Pirate. Not gonna lie, buddy.
Well, I'm recovering. I'm getting a little bit better every day. So not good for TV, but we'll keep the audio piece going. Listen, I had a commentary on my headline today, Tom, and you may, as an independent, may not totally agree with it, but I'm basically, my premise is the Democratic campaign is based on all lies. I mean,
okay.
We got Biden out there going down to South Florida, lying to seniors, just blatant lies, saying Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Even CNN and New York Times and Washington Post fact checkers said this is baloney. Not one Republican has proposed that. And then Biden's mental capacity flips into gear, saying his son died in Iraq. No, his son did not die in Iraq.
That's
Tom, I'm saying their campaign's based on all lies because they've advocated abortion up to the time of birth. Now, some of them really believe it. Others is just political. Their climate change plan with rising energy prices has virtually no support outside their own party.
Right.
I mean, to blame inflation on the, quote, Iraq war. A little bit about the Iraq war. I mean, come on, Biden.
Just a little.
For Biden to make statements like this, to me, it's a sign of desperation.
All right. So I want to go back to something about like the lies, because this is one of the things that I think that this is a symptom of the lack of discourse. Because, all right, look. Biden said something that was complete garbage. He shouldn't have said it. I am not going to defend Joe Biden for that or for a lot of things that he does. But you know me, I like to call it down the pipe. Like, you start listening to what Kari's saying out in Arizona, and half of the things coming out of her mouth are complete garbage too. I think that you are seeing both sides recognize that this is a desperate midterm election. The Dems peaked too early in their voting strategy and things like that. Like, we're going to talk about, some of these races, and it's going to kill me each time I got to go, hey, Mark, you were right. So, for the most part. So I think that what you're seeing is a symptom of that. I also think that Biden is, first of all, he's getting, I would say the other thing, he's getting blown off the pulpit by Barack Obama campaigning for the Dems. Like, Obama still got cachet. People are listening. He's moving polls. Biden goes into the market and people are like, eh. So I think that's weighing on him. Also, he was in Florida and he knows DeSantis is coming in 2024. Everything that I'm hearing and everything that I understand says that the GOP machine is rapidly trying to figure out how to back DeSantis without losing the super far right. So I think that he just decided he was going to freelance. And the thing about Joe Biden is that anytime he goes off script, he's a disaster.
Yeah.
Every single time that man, no matter what party you're a part of, no matter what you like, if you can't see that every single time he takes a hard right off script and is a disaster, I do not know what to tell you, because you're not seeing reality. He's problematic, and that's what he did. And that's where he sticks his foot in his mouth. And so I think he just said some really, really dumb things. Again, I think that he showed his lack of poise that can happen when he feels under intense pressure again. And, I also think that you're seeing another symptom of this lack of a less polite discourse that has invaded, the United States. I mean, he's using, he's just saying what he thinks is going to get people to vote for him rather than, necessarily what I think he believes.
I agree with most of what you said, but I have to push back on your premise that Barack Obama is influencing polling numbers. I've seen zero evidence of that. And if I went back and looked back at how Barack Obama has affected elections where he's campaigned, he's actually been a negative influence on Democrats. Because what happens is a lot of people see Obama out there and he's ranting and raving in front of these far left group outfits. And he's talking about climate change. He's talking about abortion, and mainly to young people. He's talking about you got to register to vote, get out the vote. And it reminds a lot of people of the bad times under the Obama administration. I really don't think he is moving needles at all. I haven't seen any evidence of it yet.
Well, I mean, from what I've seen, everything is like, so right now the Dems are going backwards in almost any major, swing state, anything like that. They're all moving backwards. So, maybe I've seen a lot of hold serve. I've seen, there hasn't been a bump, but they haven't gone back in the next couple of polls after he's been in town. So I see where you're coming from, and I'm not going to argue it. I do think that he is having a far more, I guess what I should amend my statement to saying is he's having a far more positive effect than Biden is.
Oh, I agree. 100% agree with you on that. Yeah. Biden, they can't even put Biden in a competitive race. I mean, I said this on the show yesterday. Look what they're doing. They had him go down to South Florida. That's a wasted trip. He's not going to affect one vote, if any, on DeSantis or Marco Rubio. Rubio's going to win his race by 6 to 8 points. DeSantis is going to win by 10 to 14. I mean, he may have raised a little money down there, but going to Hallandale Beach, which is South Broward County, which is the heart of the Democratic Party in South Florida, I don't know. And now they're sending him to blue states, Maryland. They're sending him out here. I think he's coming out to a race in California.
I think he's all 2020. I think it's all 2024 with him. I really do. And I think that they're trying to leverage the cachet and credibility of the White House. That's just what it seems like to me, because you're right. Like, he hasn't gone all the competitive places is where you've seen the former president go, and where the current president is going are all of these places that are, they're strongholds. I think that they're just there to raise money. And I'll call one of the first things that I was wrong about, so far, is that where I thought that the Dems were going to dump a whole bunch of money at the last minute in a lot of these key and critical races, you've actually seen the Republicans do it. That 2 to 3 point swing that I said was coming from a whole bunch of money, you're not seeing it from the left, you're seeing it from the right. I think they know that they peaked too early. I think they know they're going to take a bigger beating than they thought they were, a month, 6 weeks ago, as we had been talking over the past couple of months. And I think now they're just trying to stack cash for 2024. And if you've got the White House, you're in the Oval, that's always a great tool to go out there and, shake the hat, so to speak.
Well, it's really interesting because you mentioned money. I was doing some reviews last night. Out here in Orange County, we got a congresswoman, two-term, her name is Katie Porter. She is a far left-wing radical Democrat. There's nothing centrist about her at all. She's running against a Republican, Scott Baugh. That race is tied. Orange County was traditionally a Republican area. They called it the Orange Curtain. It's now a purple area. It goes blue, goes red, both. Democrats, get a load of this, Tom, in one congressional race. I know Katie Porter's one of their rising stars. She's a far left-wing radical. She spent $24 million on a congressional seat. I was equally astounded. I know Democrats can't stand Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know a lot of people don't like her. But
I hate her. Just so we're clear.
I know.
She's everything wrong with American politics.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to bring, I know, I'm going to bring up a point anyhow. Her constituents in her district love her. She wins by big margins. And her opponent, Democrats, the reason I bring this up, not to editorialize Marjorie Greene, but her Democratic opponent, Democrats poured $15 million into that race to try to defeat her. And the odds of that happening are like 1 in 20. And
there's zero. There's zero.
Yeah, probably zero. I've seen it all across the country, how the Democrats have this massive amount of money. I don't know where it's coming from, but my God, it is incredible the amount of money they've raised. Fetterman's debate the other day, after that horrific performance, he raised $2 million in first hour after the debate. I mean, these radical leftists, they may view this, Republicans are going to win on Tuesday, and they're going to win big, but Democrats are almost viewing this like, my God, our ship is sinking. We better throw every dollar we have into this or we're going to lose worse. To me, it's astounding when I've seen these numbers, Tom.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, I've said this on the show before, but it's like, say what you want about James Carville, as a person or with his politics, his strategy and his ability to capture everything wrong with the Democratic Party when it comes to things like this has always been on point. He's like, we spend money on crusader
Right.
moralistic causes when we should just try and win. Look,
Yes.
I have been very clear about how much I don't like Marjorie, right? Like, and I'm not going to back off that one iota. But at the same time, if you can't, even I can look at this and go, she's going to dominate. It is a dumb place for me to put $15 million for what? For
Right.
what? Like if I'm going to do that, like maybe try and pick Brian Kemp off. Although I think that would be a
That
fool's
ain't gonna
errand
happen
approach
either.
as well, right? No, but at least there's a theoretical path. Especially if you want to try and prop up Stacey Abrams for what she's meant to that party, like there's sort of a second and third order effect there. Or maybe, and this is just me and just the smart thing, maybe dump all the money into Warnock versus Walker because you actually have not only a chance to win that race, you are really fighting for a certain soul of Georgia politics in major urban areas, right? And so it's like that's where I'm putting $15 million, but they don't. I mean, Katie Porter's a good bet. You need the money in Orange County, especially if it's going to stay purple. Like I can see that. Although 24, I didn't realize it was that big. 24 million is a huge number,
Yeah.
but at least that's a place to put money, right? At least it makes sense. At least you can win there. But it's they will.
They
How much
started
money did they
off.
spend on trying to defeat McConnell? And Lindsey Graham. That was never going to happen last election cycle ever.
They start out in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district down 40 points. Now,
Yeah.
if you make up half of it, you lose by 20. So let me move on. Here's a couple.
Right. No, we're totally on the same page there. Like it's dumb. It's just
Carville's right.
Reason,
Carville,
he is.
He was right. Now, listen, one thing contributing all this Democratic malaise, a new Quinnipiac poll came out. Biden is at 37%. I track Quinnipiac's a well-respected poll.
Yes,
And Republicans now, Tom, are +4 in the generic ballot. You and I both know when Republicans are in the green on the generic ballot, I may have been too conservative. I said they were going to end up winning 20 seats in the House. I'll stick with my prediction, but boy, to me, I'm thinking right now it could trend maybe 30 or higher. Those numbers are astounding. 37% approval a week out for the election. Plus, I don't remember ever seeing Republicans +4 in a generic ballot.
I can't think of it not in a long time. And you know what? I said I thought they were going to do it around 10. I think that you're right on 20 at this point, especially from what I've seen. I mean, Eli, I love 535s a lot, and I love tracking that. They're now predicting an 85% chance that the Republicans take the House, right? And typically, anytime you can jump on their poll by about 5 points, that usually means you're picking up 2 seats, roughly. It's just sort of like the way that unofficial sort of inadvertent math works. And right now, it's a dead race in the Senate. They're actually now favoring the Republicans as of today in their polling models for the first time all election cycle, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get to that with some of those individual races. So, yeah, there's definitely a road here where I can see this being an absolute bloodbath now. Like before, I didn't see it. I really didn't. I thought, I was looking at all the numbers. I was looking at some of the key races. I'm like, and I saw the avenues for both parties, but I also saw the way for them to hold a little serve. But in the waning hours, the inflation numbers haven't gotten any better. The stock market has just been, I mean, I don't even want to see what my 401k looks like right now, Mark. Are you kidding me? Like I would curl up in the fetal position and cry.
Well,
you
and millions of other Americans, because
right.
I was just looking at while we're sitting there talking, the Fed has raised rates 75 basis points.
That's right.
Okay, that's great. That was expected. Here's the shocking analogy, though, a statement that came out. The Federal Reserve is blaming inflation on the war in Ukraine. That is insane. I mean, the war in Ukraine may be contributing a small portion, but Federal Reserve monetary, we can do a whole show on this. I only got about a minute to talk about it.
Yeah.
But the Federal Reserve's monetary policies in 2020 and 21 are what sowed the seeds of inflation, coupled with those ridiculous Democratic spending bills. To blame it on the war in Ukraine, I was shocked when that headline came across. I'm hoping it's wrong. But anyway, let me get back to politics.
Well, I just want to comment on that one really quickly. Sure. I'm hoping, let me rephrase that because I haven't seen it. I am hoping that was an inartful way to try and explain the outsized importance of Ukrainian grain to the world economy and to the world food supply. Because that, depending, if you're looking at key economic indicators of rising inflation, that is certainly, the war is certainly contributing to it, especially because Russia has reneged multiple times on the, we'll let the grain ship, oh no, we won't deals. So I agree with you. It's not nearly as big as that headline would suggest. 100% with you there, dude. Like, no argument. But I do think that there is room for an inartful explanation that goes to world foodstuff supply, which I do think is a very salient argument. I think that is contributing. Now, we can argue about how much, but that's undoubtedly a contributing factor. It is not the most prevalent or prominent, but it certainly is one.
I was pleased that the Russians backed off that threat after they got reassurances from Kiev, brokered through Turkey and Erdogan. So that was actually finally some good news that came out.
Right.
Let me get back to this election stuff here now. Let's go by it a little bit here, state by state. Pennsylvania, some sanity finally returned to election laws when the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that undated absentee ballots will not be accepted. And I was like, thank God, common sense has returned. I mean, who in their right mind would accept an absentee ballot not dated? And yet somehow who was the group, if you know, Tom? I mean, I don't even know who was pushing this. Somebody had to be pushing, or was it just an accident? I mean,
I have no idea, but that's one of those where common sense, long may it reign, right? If you don't have a date on it, you don't know when it was cast. If you don't know when it was cast, it is questioned of whether or not it was cast inside the time allowed, right? So, like, that's just so common sense to me. And the fact that it took it going all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to me just makes me shake my head. And it's like, it was, there's
somebody was arguing the case, saying it should be accepted. Likely some Democratic lawyers. I mean, thank God common sense prevailed, because that would have been atrocious. In the actual race itself, Tom, Oz and Fetterman are now tied at 47% each. And I'll go back to what I've said, blistering negative comments about Fetterman. How anyone in the state of Pennsylvania could vote for this buffoon, I don't know. I mean, he's out there. He clearly has cognitive difficulties. It's not coming just from the right wing. He was interviewed by CNN. It was a disaster. His debate was a disaster. Look, the guy has a medical condition that should have been disclosed. I don't have nothing against John Fetterman on a personal basis. No one likes to see someone have a stroke. But the fact that the Democrats are hiding his medical records because they don't want the voters to see it, I got a real problem with that, Tom.
This is one of those places where I agree with everything that you said, but in American politics, that's how it works. The Republicans hid all Reagan's second term and his campaign for it. They had Alzheimer's, right? I mean, H.W. Bush had 2 terms, just one of them wasn't official. So I'm disappointed that we haven't learned our lessons as a nation for that, but that's just what both sides are going to do. I think that I am both surprised that it's tied and Oz isn't winning, but I still go back. That is, of all the things I'm not backing down on in this election cycle, is how much of an idiot Oz is that this election has not swung after that debate 10 points his way. It just blows my mind that after that performance, and how clearly cognitively declined, John Fetterman is, and how clearly not who he was pre-stroke, and the CNN interview, that is not an arguable fact, because I'm totally with you. I wish no ill and certainly no stroke type symptoms on anyone, not even people I don't particularly like. That's a hard thing to have to deal with. That's a hard thing to be a part of. But you are in charge as one of 2 representatives in the Senate for your state. I couldn't vote for that guy. I just couldn't, just on that basis alone. It's not even a political thing. I don't know if you have the basic capability to do it. So the fact that Oz is now not walking away with it, and it's even a toss-up, again, they should have had a different candidate.
It's a toss-up, but in a poll that I really trust, it's called Insider Advantage. I know the pollster. Oz is +3 in that. So I believe Oz is going to win that race. But the fact it's even close, to echo your point, Tom, I mean, if I was a Democrat, other than a hard left-wing radical, if I was just a run-of-the-mill Democrat, I couldn't vote for this guy. I mean,
No,
I may not like Oz, but Oz will at least represent the state. This guy, horrific. All right, let me
no,
move. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
What I would say and that's exactly it. Like, we're not actually talking about politics right now. We're talking about basic capabilities, and he doesn't have it.
No, he doesn't.
It does. I don't care about anything else. He does not meet the minimum requirements of capability, and the fact that it's still so close is also baffling to me.
What do you make of General Bulldog in New Hampshire up one over Maggie Hassan? This guy has come on like a freight train. He's erased an 11-point lead in the last month.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what happens when you hit your stride and you just keep working it. Everything that I understand is he has worked really, really hard at getting absolutely into every grassroots diner that he can. The old Lyndon Johnson, I'm going to talk to absolutely everybody approach, and it's working, especially with, he's been very consistent with his message. He's been very on point with it. He knows his talking points, and he just keeps battering away like a battering ram. And that gets you places in life, right? I mean, just grit and determination will go pretty far. And when you figure out that something that's resonating and you have the discipline, which, I'm not surprised that that he has it, right? The discipline to stay on message and stay on script and continue to propagate that. Like, there's a lot to that. You're seeing the power of that with him in that race.
The man's got a Purple Heart and he's a rank of general. That's got to count for something, Tom.
Absolutely.
Adam Laxalt now up by 5 over Cortez Mastro in an Emerson College poll. I don't think he's really up by 5. I think that race is closer because I think, the culinary union is very powerful. Why they vote Democrat all the time is a mystery to me. But here's what's happening in Nevada. We feel it in California. They feel it in Nevada. The average price of gasoline unleaded in Nevada is $5.50 a gallon. You get premium unloaded, you're $5.70, $5.80. Oh yeah. So for everybody that works in that, the entertainment industry, the people who deal the cards, cook the food, serve the food, I mean, $5.50 a gallon, that's bone crushing. And that's what's happening in Nevada. And Laxalt, I think, is going to win that race. I mean, he's up, in my view, 2 or 3 points. I'm expecting a win in Nevada, which would be a shift from blue to red.
I would lean that way at this point too. I mean, the whole time we've been talking about this, I always said that my expectation was that the culinary union was going to come in at the last minute. There was going to be some sort of deal made, and they were going to dump a whole bunch of money into it, and they were going to take that 2 to 3 points, and it just hasn't materialized. Why? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really seen anything that would suggest where I feel like I could say, well, I think this happened or this didn't. It's just that the way that I saw that race, especially with it being close and with those interests, it just hasn't panned out that way. So I would say, I mean, again, I told you I was going to at the top of the show, I was going to have to say I agree. You were right a lot. I think you're definitely right on this one. Just the way that I saw that race going just hasn't happened.
One thing that happened in a state not far away, Utah, and this was one I got a little concerned about Utah a week ago, but now Mike Lee is up 19 points over independent Evan McMullen. The Democrats tried to prop up McMullen as an independent. Mm-hmm. McMullen said all the right things when he went on national television interviews, but trying to portray him as an alternative to Mike Lee, who is a staunch Republican in a staunch Republican state, I'm not going to pound the Democrats for the strategy of supporting Evan McMullen, but it doesn't appear, Tom, that that's working as Mike Lee's up anywhere, 15 to 20 points.
Yeah, I mean, especially you said it. It's a deeply red state with a well-known commodity that's deeply red. If you've got an avenue where you can try and see if maybe you can throw the Hail Mary and it's got a chance at trying, in this case that's McMullen, then yeah, I mean that's what you do, right? But it was always a long shot. I think the Dems knew that it was a long shot, but at the same time, for that seat, you've got to at least throw it against the wall and see if you can get traction or see if it sticks. And it's not sticking because of what the makeup of of Utah is.
What this has really done is exposed Mitt Romney as the hypocrite that he is, because Romney wouldn't even come out and support Lee. And he said, well, I can't support one because I'm friends with both. I'm not buying that. Romney just wants to be the senior senator from Utah, and it galls him that Mike Lee is a senior. I want to go back to Georgia for a minute.
Okay.
Did you catch Stacey Abrams' ridiculous comment about all the Georgia sheriffs that all, they all endorse Kemp. And she gets up and says, well, I'm not part of the good old boy network because, I can't support sheriffs whose primary purpose in life, and I'm paraphrasing this, folks, is to arrest young black men. I mean, Tom, that's about as bad as I know she's not qualified to be governor. She lost 4 years ago. She's going to lose this Tuesday. But that was really bottom of the barrel. And the Georgia sheriffs really fought back against that comment.
Well, I think that's just a question of the demos, right? I mean, that's desperate times, desperate measures, and in terms of Stacey Abrams, that's on brand on some levels. It's just taking it to the next level. There are real problems of racial inequity in this country. And Ahmaud Arbery certainly showed that in Georgia, right? So to take those things and try and turn it into something, combined with sort of the anti-police sentiment following George Floyd, and also that guy that got shot in the Wendy's was also in Atlanta, right? Right after George Floyd, that caused a bit of row, even though the dude that got shot had a taser and was trying to shoot that at a cop. But, we'll not go down that entire rabbit hole. Everyone knows where I feel about that. To me, that's just on brand for her. It's just like she knows she's losing. She's got to try something, anything to get in there. And, I'm not surprised. I'm really not.
No, I'm not either. It's a desperate move. She was raising hands with Barack Obama the other day, and Raphael Warnock. I mean, think about this. Warnock-Walker race has been close. Kemp at the race with her is not. Kemp has maintained a 5 to 10 point lead for a long time. So, she's getting what she deserves. She's not qualified to be governor. She's a liberal darling. They love her just like they love Beto O'Rourke. They're two liberal icons are going to both go down in flames, and it can't happen soon enough. You mentioned the George Floyd case. We normally don't talk about attorney general offices on this show, but one came across my desk, and it's a shocker. Jim Schultz in Minnesota, he leads Keith Ellison by 7 points. Keith Ellison's the attorney general that prosecuted that George Floyd case. Keith Ellison was a high-profile member of Congress. Mm-hmm. What's going on in neighboring Minnesota? I mean, Keith Ellison down 7?
I don't know. Honestly, like I saw that in the show notes, and like I had to that's usually I feel like I'm pretty on it. I had to totally scramble on that one to get up to speed on it. And I will say I don't think it's the George Floyd issue. I think that Ellison is miscalculated the tolerance that people have for being overly aggressive as a progressive. Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think he misunderstood, because again, I talked to almost 30 of my friends that are all law enforcement or former law enforcement right after George Floyd, and not one single one of them said that what Derek Chauvin did was right. Now, they had a whole bunch of different reasons to, ranging from burn them at the stake to trying to stop short of defend, but, point out the complexities of law enforcement, which there's many, right? But none of that was so clear. You can't he's already in handcuffs. You cannot keep your knee on his neck, period. No law enforcement's going to support that. No. But to acknowledge that, and then to think that you're going to get it to do these other things that Ellison has been trying to prop up was never, that's misreading the room, and he's going to pay for it.
Yeah, he may pay for it. I have 2 more domestic things, and I want to move on to a little international things here. One, I saw this story today, Tom. It's not in the notes, but New York State, and I think this typifies why Lee Zeldin has moved ahead of Kathy Hochul in the governor's race. 3 New York drug dealers who actually one of their victims died was just released on no bail. 3 notorious drug dealers, and they let them out on no bail, and now they're back on the street. A victim's dead, and it's no bail. That crime issue, I think, is propelling Lee Zeldin in New York.
Well, it would have, if Darren Bailey here in Illinois wasn't, so much of a Trumpnik, and the Illinois GOP could have gotten a more moderate candidate, that would be a massive issue here. It's the same thing, not just in Chicago, but in Illinois, period, because Pritzker put that in. So yeah, it's a huge issue. I mean, and it's one of those things where common sense. I feel like when it just in general, we're just talking about an attorney general. I just feel like the statutes of criminality in this country, there has to be a certain level of common sense, and I just feel like, especially in deep blue states, that's going away. It's not a great look for the United States to be the most incarcerated country in the world. It really isn't. Objectively, it's not. But and like some of these, marijuana things that have been forgiven federally, and there are some,
Oh,
lighter, misdemeanor crimes and stuff that I still don't understand how they would fit into like the old three-strike policy. Like that's always confused me. But if you're killing people, right? If you're armed robbery, if you're, grand theft auto with intent to harm, right? Like again, like we said at the top of the show, let's say it again, common sense, may it rain. Okay, this is someone who, at the very least, needs to be able to post bail. We need to acknowledge that there's a problem here, right?
yeah.
And yeah. So I'm not surprised. Like frankly, like I said, I think that there was an opportunity to knock Pritzker off at the very beginning, but the GOP chose the wrong candidate, and they're going to pay for it here in Illinois bad.
Yeah,
So the fact that they chose a better comment in New York, then he's got a chance, and he really might win.
Unfortunately, Fisker's not going to suffer the same fate as Kathy Hochul, maybe. And one final comment before I get into a couple international stories. Did you see the George Will column in the Washington Post? Will came out with a blistering comment today, an indictment of Joe Biden, saying just whatever happens on Tuesday, and he knows what's going to happen. And this is George Will, a Republican stalwart, but he voted for Joe Biden, said under no circumstance should this man run in 2024. He's not cognitively capable of it. And he went on to cite numerous, not just gaffes from Biden, but outright cognitive failures. And then he went on to add Kamala Harris, she is an empty suit, doesn't think for herself, uses word salad. She would be a horrific choice for the Democrats. She shouldn't run either. And I know, again, you're an independent, but do you have some type of, I happen to agree 100% with George Will on this issue. What are your thoughts on it?
George Will as a person and George Will politically is someone that I generally agree with. I mean, I consider myself, and I still say all the time, like if you can pick one politician that I wish all the other ones would emulate, it's John McCain. So it's not I say this like as an independent, I'm really aggressive about it just because I feel like we've gotten so polemic and so far to one side or the other, and I just refuse to do that, period. But I love Will. I've always loved Will. He wrote this amazing book, about Wrigley Field and just his love for, the Chicago Cubs, and like, it's just the writing is just beautiful. It's gorgeous. I think that he's an incredible thinker. I think he's underrated on some levels as a political philosopher, and I don't use that term lightly. No, and so things when George Will writes things, they carry a tremendous amount of weight with me, and I really agree with the vast majority of what he wrote in that op-ed, and I think that it is another. It's another point about what we were saying at the top about just how desperate Biden's getting. Like when you take a broadside from sort of the elder statesmen of the opinion column in the Washington Post, who's seen just about everything in Washington. Like I said, I'm an independent. Like if you can't pay attention to that on both sides of the aisle and realize something's wrong, I don't know what to tell you. Like Will usually doesn't come out with that much fire anymore because he doesn't need to. He gets to write whatever he wants, and he usually does the whizzing, pragmatic, let us be calm. And when you come out and take a broadside like that, that's something people should pay attention to.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, we got about a minute left. I want to just touch on two issues, then I want to get your predictions. Benjamin Netanyahu appears to be able to get a third-time election as the Israeli prime minister. It seems like an Israeli election wouldn't be newsworthy if Netanyahu weren't involved, but he is appeared. They have it different there. They don't just elect an individual. I'm not going to get into that today because I'm going to talk about the Netanyahu election tomorrow on the show. But I did want to mention it today. And then Tom, North Korea. I don't know what the hell's wrong with that state. 23 missiles into the sea towards South Korea. I mean, we got enough problems in the world with China, Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine. We don't need the Koreans going at it. But
yeah. I mean, my 15 seconds on Israel and Netanyahu. I really wish that there
It's
was
just
more fresh blood there. Their system's very different, and I respect that this is their political process. I like that they have more parties, which can offer more variety in their parliament. But I would like to see some fresh ideas, because I just feel like Netanyahu personally, as someone who studied the Middle East a lot for political science and international studies, I just feel like he's kind of a broken record at this point. But that's my own personal preference. As far as North Korea, like the missiles, they've done that before. They're going to do it again. What I can't believe is that they actually, it's come out that they were the ones that are supplying a lot of ammunition to Russia.
Yeah.
And what's shocked me so much about that is that it puts China in such a bad position, because the only reason that North Korea has not been wiped off the map about 1,000 times over is because everybody understands if you cross that parallel, you're going to fight with China. That's the only reason, right? So now, I mean, the Chinese have got to be Ping has just got to be losing his mind. It's just that to me is like, they tolerate some of this missile nonsense and things like that. Like I said, they've done it before, they'll do it again, right? And everyone we'll rattle the saber and we'll back channel China and be like, hey, we're not gonna mess with you guys. Like, we just got to remind these idiots. But I mean, the ammunition thing really surprised me, and I'm like, again, kind of like what you said with missiles. Like, you guys, come on, man! Like,
right.
Stop it.
All right, Tom, we're almost at the end. Okay, got less than 30. This is your final appearance before the election.
Mm-hmm.
You talked for months. Give me your prediction, House and Senate.
I think the House goes +1 Republican. I think that you're right about.
You mean Senate?
Or in the Senate? Sorry, in the Senate, +1 to the Senate. I think you're right about Nevada. The Wisconsin race is no longer close. That is firmly going to go red. North Carolina is not close anymore. It's firmly going to go red. And I do think that they're gonna hold serve with Fetterman, but they need at least one more other one. They're not going to get it. So I think it's going to end up being 51-49. I think that your prediction of 20. I think that I'll give you a range just because there's so much variance in the House with having that many seats up. I think that the lower end of seat pickup is somewhere around 18, and I think that the upper end is somewhere around 32. Like, I really think that is the variant here. Whereas before I didn't see the road to a bloodbath necessarily. It's absolutely there now. The Dems peaked too early. They have not had a good rally strategy. They're dumping money in stupid places. And yeah, that's where I see it.
You and I are pretty close. I mean, I'm fluctuating right now, 51-49, 52-48. In the House, I'm sticking with my number of 20. So, Tom, again, thank you for joining me today. Your insight, your commentary, and your predictions are normally pretty good. We'll talk after the election and see how close you and I came. But thank you for joining me today. Have a great election day. All the best for Chicago, and I'll see you sometime after the election.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And everyone who's watching this, go out and vote.
Go out and vote 100%. All right, folks, thanks for viewing today. I'll be back tomorrow. Jeffrey's going to join me. We're going to talk a little about Israeli politics and further insight into the U.S. election. Have a good evening. See you tomorrow.